Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Salsa Table Podcast. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit differently than we had previously planned. In our first episode, we talked about how we would be exploring interesting pockets of psychology, but today, after a mishap, we actually recorded an episode and completely trashed it. It might be maybe bonus features later, but we recorded a podcast and it didn't work out. We tried to do it. It was a little too organized, but today we're just going to talk about whatever we want to talk about. And the first topic that we're going to go around the table and have as a starter is the ethics of parenting. So John and I were kind of having a little bit of discourse about how much technology is appropriate for a child and when is it appropriate that they should be exposed to technology, because obviously there are drawbacks, and this is a problem that parents are now facing, whereas before they were not facing it. So also, I completely forgot. So in attendance today, we actually have a group of 5 people. So I'm Josh, the host, and my co-host Nathan.
Hello.
Is here. And we have Brock.
Hello.
And John.
Good to be here.
John Larson is also here. So aside from the main 3, Nathan, me, and Brock, we also have John as a guest. And Tanner. Say
Hi.
hello. All right. Anyways. Okay, well, let's go ahead and start with Nathan. Nathan, at what age is it appropriate for a child? You can specify whether boy or girl, but at what age do you think it's appropriate that 1, they should get a phone, or 2, they should get social media?
Okay, so here are my thoughts. I think that in the modern world that we live in, I kind of think that younger is better, because the younger you are, if you kind of start small with baby steps, the more you can be adjusted to it, versus just giving a cell phone to a teenager and throwing them into it can be a little bit, I think, overwhelming. And so I think when a kid turns 12, I think that is a good time for them to have a phone and start learning about it. And then when I say about the same time, a kid can have social media as well.
So you would kind of take on a more measured approach where they're exposed to technology at an early age, so they're not flooded at kind of a more vulnerable age where a lot of changes are taking place.
Yeah, kind of, I would say so.
Huh.
Just having someone, a kid exposed to that, knowing about social media, how it works. I mean, if you're smart and you're a good parent and you kind of ease them into it, let them know this is what you got to do. If you see this is what you got to do. Or if someone says this to you, and to just be have an open relationship with your kid. And I think if you have a good open relationship, then I think you could also handle your child having a smartphone at an earlier age.
Huh. Would you believe in time limits on technology? Daily time limits?
I think if your child starts losing control and can't handle the technology, and you kind of realize that as a parent, then maybe the time limits would be a way to kind of control your child.
Yeah.
Okay, here's my question to you.
Yeah.
Would you take their phone away before they go to bed?
I would hope that I would not have to do that, but I might if I notice that my child is staying up very late.
Yeah, I think I'd be on board with Brock with that. There should be just a chest with a key. Especially if I had several children, I think it would be a good idea to lock those phones up and have some sort of charging apparatus built into the chest. Or they know that they can't sneak into my room and take it or do anything. They know that it's locked away, and they can come and grab it at a certain time. Or you could just set the phone to officially lock until a certain time. I'm sure there's parental controls that exist on phones already. Nathan, was that all you had to say about like technology and parenting?
Those are my initial thoughts. Yeah, I'll contribute though as I hear you guys'
Yeah.
opinions.
Okay, Brock, what do you think?
Like, it's getting more and more like kid friendly these days. Like, there's this new like phone called like the Gab, where like they have a phone where it's just like for texting and calling, and there's no access to like the internet or social media.
Yeah.
That'd be like a good way to get them in at like 12, and then and then you just teach, like, kind of like what Nate was saying, like you'd just teach them like what social media is, like how dangerous it can be, or like the good things and the bad things, and then once they understand the risks that they take by having social media, then you can let them have like a iPhone.
Yeah.
And then I'd go along with like locking, like putting the phones like away so that they can actually sleep and not have like issues with staying up till 3 on their phones and not getting any sleep.
Yeah. Okay. John, what do you think?
I think this is all meaningless.
You want to expand on that?
I would love to expand on that. By the time we have children, this debate will not be a thing. Because there won't be any phones.
Really? What makes you say that? Is this like some sort of Elon Musk, like, phones won't even exist, man. We're just going to be able to communicate with radio, like, through our brains.
Radio, that's what it will be.
Radio.
No, the future's here, man.
What do you think the future is?
By the time I
gonna
have a
be?
12-year-old kid, that's going to be in, like, I don't know, 20 years at least.
Really? So you're not going to have a kid for 8 years,
I don't know.
and you're 21.
Maybe.
You're almost 22.
Maybe. But my thinking is, I don't even know what I'd do, but it's going to be so different that it doesn't matter. But I do see kids these days are just so addicted to technology. It like hurts me. Like my little cousins, like they cannot function without having a phone in front of their face or like video games. So I think it's going to really screw up this generation.
So something like this very interesting, this interesting way to look at it was that technology, they're literally just like, they're like dopamine factories, and they just like produce whatever chemical our brain is looking for, and that's why we find it so curious. I mean, obviously, technology is vastly useful. It's highly like utilitarian. It basically shrinks down so many different technologies into one usable technology, where you have so many aspects of information at your grasp. But at the same time, like, it really is, like, I don't feel like the psychology of technology has been explored enough, because literally we can access, I mean, I hate to say it, but like porn, you can get anything on the internet. You can basically access whatever neurotransmitter your brain wants at that time. And I think it should be well to note that, like, if kids are exposed to that at such a young age, I mean, obviously there's an element of danger, but I think the problem that we were talking about before is, where is the balance? Because on one hand, if, like, let's go with sugar. If you're the parent that doesn't give your kid sugar, then he's going to be at the scout camp the little crackhead. He's like the meth head that shows up to like the scout camp and needs sugar and like is hoarding sugar. He's like going to the scout post and like the post office, or not the post office, but whatever it's called. Like, he's going to find candy. He's like eating sugar. He's drinking sugary drinks and all that. And he's like a crackhead.
He makes the stash.
Yeah, he makes a stash
Jaden
like
and
Jaden. Yeah. But like also, so if you're too strict on your kid, they end up going underneath the radar, because kids will find what they want. Like we all know the totalitarian parents of our friend group, or of our greater friend group with our friends at high school and such, with parents that were so incredibly overbearing on their kids, and these kids found a way to get it anyways. Like, we know that the kids that had the worst parents were the most like rebellious. The kids, or the parents that were the most strict, had the most rebellious kids. And so where is that balance? Whether it's sugar, like, do you really want to give your 2-year-old sugar? Because you're basically hijacking his brain chemistry. You are giving that kid heroin. And it's all relative, right? Because to a kid, they really love candy, and they will really do anything for candy. But as they get older, it's like candy and technology, right? Because technology, I can play colorful games that like interact with me, and I can accomplish things and
Candy Crush,
stuff like that. Like it's very interesting to children, rightly so. Like we, honestly, us sitting at this table right now, we're the first generation to really have technology integrated with our childhood. Because when we were like 6, 7, 8 years old, the first iPhone came out. I guess we were 10.
We were 10.
So we were 10, but they had iPods before that, right? iPod Touches. And with that, we had different games. And so even at that point, it was like, who has the latest gadget? Like, I remember Nathan had an iPod Touch, and Tanner got an iPod Touch, and
Jaden had a first one. He had the OG.
Exactly. And it was who has it and who doesn't. But it was like, it's this completely new vein of parenting that hasn't been explored yet. How much candy should you give to your kids? But the more important question is, how much technology should you give to your kids? Or should you even regulate it at all? Maybe a hands-off policy is best, because if you're too overbearing, if you limit them too much, they will find what they're looking for regardless. You know what I mean? So we haven't heard from Tanner yet. So Tanner, give us your scoop. At what age do you think it's appropriate to first give your kid a phone, or second, when should they get social media?
I kind of agree with John that this discussion for when we have kids, well, what we're saying right now might not apply. But if we do it for right now, I think a good age to get social media would be like 14. Probably just because that's when you're really like starting to be social, like in junior high and things like that, going into high school. I don't think it's good if little kids have like an Instagram, just because they get so absorbed in like what other people are saying, and you could give them, kids could get social anxieties from like a younger age, I guess you could say. But having a phone, I think having a phone is smart if you're a parent, because I had a phone when I was 11, and I felt like that was a lot of freedom for me, and I think it was a good thing. I wasn't really addicted to my phone because I could only text or call.
Yeah.
So I would say probably 12 for a phone and like 14, 15 for Instagram.
Well, I think it is useful from like a parent's perspective, because you can communicate with your kid, because at 12 they start moving out of the house more to hang out with friends. So it's useful to have that method of communication. But I want to talk about like my high school experience, because I didn't have a phone. Well, I guess I had a BlackBerry, but then it was taken away because I decided to go to Dungeons and Dragons Club. And obviously having LDS parents who grew up in the 80s during the satanic scare, having your kid going and playing Dungeons and Dragons now is pretty docile, but I guess to their understanding of what Dungeons and Dragons is, it's pretty intense and satanic and devilry and magic and whatever. So they got mad at me, and I basically lost my phone, my BlackBerry. So it didn't have like everything that would be ideal for a phone at the time, but like basically I went through most of high school without a cellular device, like completely void of a cellular device. And I want to hear from Nathan and John and maybe even Tanner about like what, from your perspective, how do you think that impacted me?
All right, yeah.
Right? Yes.
So I think you were definitely more aware of situations where everyone was sitting on their phone, because you would constantly be saying stuff like, everyone's sitting on their phone, let's do something.
Yeah, because I'd be bored, dude. I'd show up and everybody would be sitting on their phone, and I didn't have a phone to distract me during the Wii moments.
Yeah, that is true. I think it led you to do things that not a lot of us did at the time. Like, I think you did a really good job at like taking notes and like, cause I think you had a journal, like red notebook you carried around with you.
Oh yeah.
Where like you would write all your thoughts, and like when you were bored, you'd kind of pull out your notebook, and rather the rest of us would pull out our phones instead. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I do also want to say though, when you did get a phone, you were worse than all of us.
I guess I can't refute that because that's your opinion. But I think it might be true. I don't think I'm bad now.
No, you're not bad now. But when you first got a phone, you kind of became the person that was always on their
you
phone.
swore to destroy.
Yeah.
You had to make up for all the times you didn't have a phone.
Yeah. So John, what do you think? Do you think it just completely destroyed me, not having a phone in high school? You know, what did you think?
I think it definitely was a handicap to you, a hindrance in your life.
Like a social hindrance?
Yeah, easily, for sure.
Well, I also didn't have, this is another thing, dude. I didn't have a driver's license until I got my Eagle at like 17, dude. I was a complete leech on the friend group.
Was
for
basically
years.
screwed over.
Wait, can I add one more thing?
Yeah.
I was going to say, there was this time where we were trying to find Josh where he's like passed out in a field and he didn't have a phone. And if he had a phone then, it would have just been so much easier. We probably wouldn't have gone into this huge trouble that we did.
Which by the way, in hindsight, I probably had a seizure. And nobody knew, or how I like to describe it. I probably went into the Avatar state.
Anyways, I just wanted to add that. Sorry for interrupting, John.
No, that is a valid point. I think those things screwed you over in some ways, but you being the all-mind were able to overcome those obstacles and still have a good high school career.
Yeah.
And we would basically just like have to text your mom and be like, can Josh play?
I still have Josh's mom's voicemail like burned into my brain. Like, hey, it's Ray.
Leave me a message. So, yeah, on one side of the aisle, like, I didn't have a phone through high school, and this was a time where everybody and their dog had a phone. And so, on one side, like, I really wanted a phone, and I didn't ever communicate with girls. So, basically, like that was a super, like, it was a potent handicap. Like, I literally could not text girls. If girls would ask for my number, even if there was something going on, like, between us, like, you couldn't develop that because you couldn't text them, you couldn't call them, you had to, like, use your mom's phone and
that would
stuff.
I remember Josh using my phone to, like, DM or talk to girls.
Yeah. Yep, I definitely remember Josh taking my phone and using up the whole battery to DM this girl, and it annoyed me at the time.
Dang, dude. I completely forgot that. But, like, yeah, basically, because I didn't have a phone, on some at some level, like, I committed social suicide. Like, I really was not socially active. I had a close group of friends. They looked out for me. So I was able to use their phone to, like, take care of business and such. But I really didn't have a phone. So I think it was for the better, maybe, because, like, I was able to, like, carry a notebook with me, and I was, like, this weird out of place Renaissance man in, like, 2015, 2016. But at the same time, like, I don't know. I do not know. I think my official opinion is that social media should definitely come after a phone is introduced, because social media kind of, like, especially for girls, and we can talk about this if you guys have any insights, but, like, for girls, it introduces, like, insecurity very early on, because girls are heavy on like, social acceptance, and I mean, everybody is really, but girls have an added element of emotional insecurity, and at such a time like 12 to 14 where their hormones are really active, it seems like a really inappropriate time to introduce social media. But it's like with me, like, if you don't introduce those things appropriately, your kid ends up being imbalanced. Like I was. Like I didn't have a phone, and so I had to like go through all these dumb extra steps that we all agree was like completely pointless. It would have just been so much easier for me to have a phone. But what do you guys think about social media? And specifically, I guess we could focus on like women and insecurities, even though we're all men and we all literally have no idea what we're talking about. But what do you guys think about social media specifically?
I can speak specifically from, I have a little sister who's a teenager now, and
in the TikTok age, by the way.
Well, yeah, it's a whole different era,
which is different.
I think she does a good job of not like letting it get to her head as far as most little girls go, but I don't know, girls like, you'll see a girl post a picture and there'll be 50 comments from other girls saying, oh my gosh, you're so pretty, you look beautiful, but you just don't see that with guys. And I think social media adds this extra level of anxiety to girls that we just don't see.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, in a way like it's destroying women.
Right. They're like become dependent on hearing compliments. Like we all know some girls that are wanting to be influencers on Instagram or things like that, and so they post so frequently, and it's like some stuff that is dumb or like maybe it's a cool picture, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it feels like they're seeking out this attention to fill a void that they have.
Yeah.
And though that's not exclusively an issue with girls, you'll see it more with them than you would with a boy.
Yeah, so I think you're actually in a unique position, like, in your family, because you are the oldest and Devery is the youngest, and so, like, you're able to form thoughts about how you would parent a girl her age. So what do you think is the appropriate age where you would introduce social media to, like, a young, like, socially developing young woman?
I would say about the same as I did before, about 14. I think my mom actually did a really good job at introducing my sister into Instagram. Because at first it was like my mom had access to her account.
Yeah.
And if Debbie wanted to post something, she had to ask my mom for permission. But she still had it, and she could see other things, and she could like comment on girls' pictures and like stuff and follow whoever she wanted. But it was like oversaw by my mom. Like she basically was like mentoring her into it, and now she kind of has free reign and she can do whatever she wants, but it's not like I can tell my sister doesn't have a dependence on like Instagram. Like it's just an addition to her social life versus like needing this attention that comes from Instagram.
I was gonna say when I first was talking about like giving your kid a phone and like social media, I kind of was trying to get out what Tanner was saying with like the baby steps of like introducing them.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah.
That's what.
Because I guess now my sister has free reign and she's going to turn 15, but it really started when she was about 12.
Yeah.
Like when she was 12, my mom's like, okay, if you want to post something, you let me know. And like it was very monitored, and now she kind of has her own free thing, and it's like just an extension of her social life instead of like this dependency.
Yeah. How old were we when we got Instagram?
8th grade.
Yeah, dude.
I specifically rember being 14 when I got Instagram.
So Instagram was still coming on the scene in junior high for us, but like Facebook really took hold when we were in late elementary and junior high, and then like by high school it was Instagram and Snapchat really. And I think I got my Facebook when I was maybe 12. Well, I got an email at 12, which I thought was the coolest thing since sliced bread, because you could talk to your friends and stuff, and it was cool. Like I don't think I'd have a problem with my kid getting an email. Of course, this is like, and I wanted to add, like, this is 15 years in the future for us, so we're not going to face these troubles with teenagers until at least like 15 years from now, because none of us are married yet, and we still have to raise children first. But I think like I got Facebook when I think I was in early junior high, and it was healthy. I don't think I was dependent on it, because I still had to you still had to go to a desktop or like a laptop to go and access it, and it was only like a few times a day. And then at that time it was like the early memeing industry. What do you guys think about social media, like Facebook, when it first came on? Like,
I remember
what are
that,
your
like,
memories?
I had to fake my age so I could get a Facebook.
Oh,
I think we all did.
yeah. We
Yep.
faked our ages.
And like, it was different because I had to go onto my mom's computer to get onto my account, and so it was very limited use that I had.
yeah.
And I think the biggest reason I was even on there is because of like that farm game, Farmville. so I'd like check my crops and dumb stuff like that and play mini games or whatever. But it was a good introduction to like social media because you would see updates from your friends like, oh, Brendan Bailey's in some basketball tournament in Vegas. So that's cool. Just like things like that.
Yeah. I was looking on this and I got my Facebook in 2009. And so I was like 11 years old when I got Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't feel like, do you feel like it hindered you in any way?
No. I think it might have just been different back then, but like not a lot of people took Facebook very seriously. So it's kind of a place where I would post just really dumb things like pictures of Psyduck and
Me and Kat for a million hours from YouTube.
Yeah, like it wasn't I didn't really use it like that socially, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the social aspect arrived with Instagram a little bit more.
Yeah, for me that would be definitely true.
Like the gaining followers and the counting likes and such.
Yeah, I remember back in the day, John and Tanner had this like competition to see who could get the most friends, and I think that was the first time that I was ever really exposed to like the idea that the more you could have influence on social media is when they had that fight.
I remember that battle, and neither of us wanted to admit that we were just sending friend requests to like random foreigners.
I have so many Facebook friends now that I don't know. Really though, it was the dumbest thing ever. But now that I think about it, that was the first time that like social media was ever toxic.
Yeah.
In my life. And it wasn't like wasn't seeing anything dumb. It was just the fact that like John and I based some sort of self-worth off of the amount of friends we had on Facebook. Like that meant anything.
Which is hilarious. But people absolutely do that today with number of followers on Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
You have to have a good ratio.
The good ratio.
You can buy followers and be fake, or you can just follow random people and then unfollow them later.
I remember this unnamed friend of ours who had like 1,000 followers on Instagram, and me and John were so convinced that he had bought followers. Like
I know people who have bought followers recently. You go through their follower list, and it's all like these fake Russian accounts, and it's just ridiculous. But I also wanted to like note that I noticed a phenomenon while we were talking, and that phenomenon is that we all seemed to give our input that the age, so we all said around 12 to 14, right? We all said that, and coincidentally, that's about the time that our parents gave it to us. So I think, are we approving of the way that our parents, are we like giving our parents a pat on the back for the way that they handled this newfound social media and technology thing? Because it seems like you guys are going to follow the model that your parents gave you, which is to give your kids technology early on and kind of nurse them into technology, but also that at a certain age they like get a rite of passage, like you get your first spear if we're like a tribe of people. like you get the rite of passage, which is you're on Facebook now, right? You can add your family and your friends on Facebook. So I think it's just interesting to note that we all kind of anonymously agreed with how our parents handled this.
All right, I have an interesting question I want to pose to you guys. Do you think there's like an age or a mental capacity where adults or old people should not have?
My God! Once you are a senior citizen,
above the age of 40.
Are you guys really suggesting that we should sort of send them out to pasture?
Here's the thing. No, we just keep them on Facebook.
We keep them on Facebook, and we let them pretend like they're actually doing things.
I honestly think that once I'm married and like start my own family, I don't think I'll care about Instagram that much. Like I really don't think I will. I might go on the occasion, but not nearly as much as I do right now.
But Can we also talk about this? Like, as adults, we seem to use social media differently now because we also use it as a news source, right? Like,
True.
I specifically, I don't know how you guys use Facebook, but I kind of use it as my news source. And unfortunately, a lot of the time, the news that I'm getting is either very negative or it's incomplete or misinformation or disinformation. What do you guys think about, like, censorship? Like, we should maybe open this can of worms, like censorship and social media and news, and how does it affect? So now that we've kind of established the younger side of technology and social media, now we need to talk about how adults like use, or how they should use. I feel that we should probably go into the fact that mental health is probably a factor in social media use. What do you think the prescription is? And we'll start with Nathan. What is a prescription for an adult? So now you can make your own decisions. You're not like sort of tailoring this parenting plan for a child. This is your life. So what would you prescribe to yourself if you were taking care of yourself, as if from a third-party standpoint, like a doctor or something? Like, you get 2 hours of social media per day, and that is final because I'm your parent, so to speak. What's your prescription?
Well, my prescription is I just do whatever I want. I don't set
That's
any
badass.
personal limits for myself and how I use social media. I think, though, I am more and more consciously aware of, like, when I am with other people, when I'm looking at my phone, and then I kind of make the decision sometimes to just put my phone in my pocket. But kind of going back to social media, I don't know. I feel like when I was on my mission, I didn't have social media for the first half of it, and it was like a very nice break, honestly. It was like kind of refreshing to get off of it because you just kind of hear, I don't know, the world seemed a little bit more sane, I guess, because like you don't hear about all the crazy stuff and
Like
people's
grounded.
crazy opinions.
People aren't like blown about by the day-to-day.
Yeah. And like people are more willing to rant on Facebook than they are to rant to your face usually. So like when people talk to you in person, I feel like they're more sensitive and they're more understanding and they see both sides of an issue better than if you were to be in a comment on a post on Instagram.
Well, of course, yeah. Like so much vitriol is slung in a chat group or like in a Facebook comments thread. Whereas if you were in that front of that person, you would see a person. Yeah.
And then there's also like that buffer that like you're not like right in front of that person, so you're not like so you're not conscious about like how that person's gonna feel.
Yeah.
And like you just feel more at ease to just go off on the world on like a Facebook thread rather than like go off on someone else.
Yeah, I would. So you mentioned the buffer, right? The separation from you and the actual deed that's being done. I have a similar philosophy with meat eating, in that, and we can maybe talk about this later, but I want to stay on social media. But like, I have a belief that if you wouldn't kill the animal yourself and clean it and butcher it, then you don't deserve to eat it. Because there's like immense hypocrisy in the act of consuming something that had to die in order for you to eat it, but that you wouldn't be able or willing to like kill the animal yourself, because you're essentially outsourcing the death. You're separating yourself. There's a buffer between the death of the animal and you, and so you don't care. It just tastes good to you. So we can talk about that later. I kind of went on a little bit of a rant. We'll talk about the ethics of meat eating later. But John, what do you think is the prescription for social media for an adult? We've made it to adulthood. Our parents seem to do well enough with us as kids, seem to be the consensus. But what is your prescription now?
I think it obviously depends per person. I know some people that like set limits for themselves on time, because if not, they'll just waste endless amounts of time.
I fully ignore those, by the way.
Yeah, they don't work. They literally set a limit and then they're like, oh, all right, 15 more minutes.
15 more minutes.
15 more minutes.
Just ignore for the rest of the day.
So I don't have like any form of limit or anything. And like, let's look at how much.
Yeah, let's look at John's usage. So
My
John's
daily
gonna pull it up.
average time on Instagram is 35 minutes.
I'm gonna pull up mine too.
Yeah, everyone. Let's take a
Everyone
look.
pull out your daily usage. In fact, maybe we should go to the usage app on your phone, or I don't know if it's an app. I think it's in the settings. And if you're listening to this, go ahead and do this with us. So pull out your usage, your screen time. That's what it is. So you go to settings and find screen time. And it looks like my daily average on my phone is 1 hour per day, which, by the way, is 83% down from last week.
It's messed up. I think it starts like today.
Okay,
my
so
daily
let's
average is
go-
22 minutes.
Let's go back a week. So let's go to the week, and I'll go back. Yeah, so, okay. So 5 hours and 20 minutes per day seems a lot more accurate. And let's break it down a little bit. So social networking actually takes up a fair amount of that. Entertainment, it's about half and half with entertainment and social networking, which for me, entertainment literally means either Spotify or YouTube exclusively. Recently, I've also listened to audiobooks, so I guess that counts. But 5 hours and 20 minutes per day. And then that seems to be the trend. 3 hours, 5 hours. I just started a new job, and so that might factor in. Nathan, do you want to go through your usage with us if you have it broken down? Nathan doesn't have an iPhone, unfortunately.
I was looking at last week, and it looks like last week I averaged about 4 hours a day on my phone.
Yeah.
The majority of the time is spent on YouTube, 2 hours usually every day on YouTube. And then I spend
It's honestly admirable, though.
I don't know if you consider YouTube social media, but social media time is the second biggest thing, which I spend roughly probably about an hour average every day on, spread out through Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat.
Nice. As a quick side note, wouldn't it be interesting? So we talked about this in the first episode, but wouldn't it be interesting if we all pulled out our bank accounts? Guys, money is so taboo. Why don't we talk? Because literally, each one, we'll maybe think about it for next episode. But literally, guys, every single one of us at this table has a finite amount of currency that is at our disposal. Think about that. And some of us might have parents that contribute, or some of us, it doesn't matter. But literally, there is a dollar amount in all of our bank accounts right this second. And obviously, one of us has the most. And obviously, one of us has the least. So who is it? And does it matter? Right? Why is it so taboo? Why do I have a hard time telling other people what my hourly wage is at work? It's just a wage. It doesn't really matter. But apparently, it's how useful you are to the tribe.
Well, there's status attached to everything.
Yeah.
And so
it's just money. And we're friends first, right? It's literally just money. So maybe we'll do that. We'll consider that for next episode. We'll all pull out our bank accounts and say, I have X amount of dollars in my bank account. And this is my spending from last month. And I spent $500 or whatever, or $200. But Brock, go ahead and tell us your social media usage.
Actually, I just turned it off.
Oh, nice. So Brock was flying blind in his life. He did not have anything activated.
Check on your Instagram. It should tell you just what you've been using there at least.
And while you do that, John, do you want to give us your usage?
My data usage, yeah. I think that is there too. Cellular from, let's see, March 24th, I used 20 gigabytes of data.
Dang.
I don't know if that's a lot. I want to see for myself. But that does seem that seems like a fair amount given your reaction. John, do you want to give us your scoop?
Yeah, sure.
Wow.
So last week's average was 3 hours and 56 minutes. Most used was Instagram, then messages, then Gospel Library, then Snapchat, then Safari, then chess. Seems about accurate.
Attaboy, though. Some of those are very admirable.
The week
time
before
usages.
that, most used was messages. So I'm pretty happy about that. I'm actually just using my phone to communicate with people.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say about social media is there's a lot of people who set time limits. I don't do that. I don't feel like I'm on it enough to really warrant that. And most people just ignore them anyway.
Yeah.
However, I have been thinking about just deleting my Instagram just because it honestly is like the comparison thing. Like you look at other people, see what they're doing, and then it just makes you like want to do something like cooler or better, you know? And I like Instagram and like Visco just for the like picture aspect of things. I like photography and like posting pictures and like, I mean, staying connected with people is cool too. But I've like thought about just outright deleting my Instagram, but I never do it because I realize that I actually do use it to communicate with people a lot.
Yeah. I also think that like Instagram is almost like a journal.
Yeah,
for a lot of people, because I thoroughly enjoy going through my Instagram, seeing what I was up to a year ago, seeing what kind of stories I was posting 4 years ago or whatever. So I don't think it's appropriate to like outright delete your Instagram unless you are like an addict, unless you really consider yourself an addict and have a problem. But at the same time, like maybe discipline can help. Tanner, so we haven't heard from you. Did you pull up your...
Yeah. Mine was interesting to me. Because I haven't looked at it ever, but I do have it on. Hold on, let me just pull it up again. Last week. So my last week's average was 13 hours a day on my phone. But...
Okay. So we need to talk about this. And really quick...
Let me clarify why.
Because we just had John... who went through his phone. We vetted his usage, and it seems like he has a very balanced and healthy usage on his phone. He's playing chess. He's reading Gospel Library. So that seems healthy. 4 hours a day. When you think about the fact that we're only awake for 18 hours a day or 16 hours a day, that's kind of still a little bit nerve-wracking that we're so symbiotic with technology. But then we have Tanner over here putting up numbers.
Okay. The reason it's so high, because when I first saw that number, I was like kind of shook. But the vast majority of that time is YouTube and music and Instagram.
Let's see this though. Okay, you conveniently placed out Brawl Stars 8 hours.
That was over the whole week.
What is that?
Dude, it's just game.
It's good that it was a game and not a dirty app.
No.
We know you're not that kind of guy, though.
No, yeah. But the reason I bring up YouTube is because I always have YouTube playing in the background when I work.
Yeah.
And I work probably 4 hours a day on my computer. And so
that's what I do.
That spikes it quite a bit.
Me too, yeah.
Or I'll be playing music, like I go to the gym almost every day, and that'll be like an hour and a half, or the other times I'm listening to music. So I feel like these numbers are kind of skewed, but I do play that game quite a bit. That one and Instagram. But other than that, it's like...
I want you to tell us, too, for the record, how much time do you spend on Tinder per week? Because that's our next topic.
I spent 55 minutes on Tinder last week. And
it's not bad. That's enough to...
same number on Mutual.
That's enough to swipe through until you lose your swipes and to see who you matched with, so...
I've never even lost my swipes on Tinder.
I think that's interesting, like data usage. Tanner, do you think that your current data usage is unhealthy?
As far as me, like the amount I use my phone?
Yeah, because you did justify with like you keep YouTube open while you work. I do the same, dude. Like YouTube is constantly playing a podcast or some sort of Vsauce video.
I love Vsauce.
Or like YouTube and Spotify are my big users. But what do you think? I think we all swipe through. Like you kind of do a cycle through, right? Between apps. You'll like go between Facebook and then Instagram and then Snapchat and then Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat. And like when one of them like loses its flavor, you just go on to the next one. Does that happen to you?
Sometimes it does.
Occasionally, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think my usage is unhealthy, but I do think there are a lot of things I do that are unnecessary. Like, the reason I play the games that I play is because my siblings play them. And so it's, like, fun. But at the same time, a lot of the time I play by myself. Mm-hmm. And so that's not necessary. Like, that's kind of just a waste of time. Or Instagram, like I'll scroll through for a little bit and see everything that I like need to see, but I'll be bored, so I like stay on there longer.
Yeah.
So it's not like a lot of it just out of boredom and not having anything else to do versus like a dependency.
Yeah.
But I would like to find other things to do with my time than just wasting on my phone.
Yeah. So I think we should also talk about this. I think Tanner's numbers are probably a little bit more skewed as well, because you did mention earlier that you are not working right now, and so you do have that extra free time to like be on your phone. Would you mind sharing us your numbers from like when you're a full-time worker? Go back a few weeks. I'm curious to see if it's still 13 hours and we can roast you. Because I think I feel really bad when mine is at 6 hours plus, because I'll check it occasionally, and if I'm spending 6 hours a day on my phone, I feel like that reaches unhealthy levels, at least for me. But when you have, like what Tanner was saying, when you have like YouTube open for long durations of time, like 4 hours a day, where it's just playing just random videos for you, educational or otherwise, I think that could skew your numbers, but...
So it doesn't go back far enough for me to see when I was working.
Okay.
I only worked 2 days the last week it shows.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's fine. Like, I was only going to use it against you anyway. So it just basically, like, I was asking you to incriminate yourself.
All right. Can I bring up something real quick?
Of course, Nathan.
All right. So this is something that you touched on earlier, but I kind of want to go back and talk about it, as the whole idea of social media and free speech and
censorship.
Because I kind of have mixed feelings on this, and I don't know exactly what side I want to choose, or if I want to choose a side. A big thing for me is I totally understand the argument that we should have free speech. I am all for free speech, and I am against hate speech, but that's a whole nother discussion. But anyways, it kind of makes sense to me that the idea of like these big social media companies are such a huge platform that it's almost public to say, even though these are private companies. So if you were to say that Facebook is public, then it would make sense for them not to have censorship involved. But then again, this is where I kind of go back on that, is like, Facebook is a private company. They're allowed to do what they want. It's their platform.
Yeah.
So they are free to censor whatever they want because it is a private company. So it's like, if we have that free speech, then we also sacrifice the freedom of the government coming in and telling a company what they can and cannot do. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I kind of go back and forth. What do you guys think?
Did you have anything to say, Brock? No?
I'm loading
well,
my thoughts.
Honestly, like, I feel like basic fact checking was probably a good move. And there's different levels of censorship, I think. So specifically with like fact checking, or like graphic videos, like I think graphic videos should be flagged and stuff like that. Like that's just basic censorship. That kind of makes it a little more family friendly or community friendly. You're at least warned before you see somebody's head being torn off.
Yeah, do you think a company should be forced to do that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's a private company, and I think generally my political philosophy is that the government does things terribly. They are the most inefficient like steer in the farm. Like they are awful. But I guess I want the government to respect the sanctity of companies, and companies can do whatever they want because it's their product.
So you think Facebook does have the right to censorship people?
To censor like ideas or like posts? Well, I think it is their platform, and to some extent, yes. But I want to bring up YouTube because YouTube's like a different thing. But what I was going to say is like, So when you look at like a news article and it says fact check false, or like this was fact checked by independent fact checkers, I think that's fine. I really question the validity because you don't get to see the methodology of like how they came to that conclusion that it was false. And but we can admit that there's a lot of disinformation and misinformation going on Facebook all the time, and it's literally destroying an entire generation. I'm talking to you, baby boomers. You guys eat that shit right up. You guys see whatever is going on Facebook, and you guys just suck it up. You're like sponges. You have no critical like. I'm sorry to be that person that throws the brick, but like I was raised in a world where social media and technology were prevalent, and you were not. You came into this as adults already, and so I don't feel like you guys have the same toolkit that we do, because we just naturally have it for some reason, and so we're able to kind of discern a little bit better that the Nigerian prince that hit us up in our email that needs money. I think we're able to discern that, but for some reason you guys seem to like wane on that a little bit. And so to some degree, like you see news articles from like just the crappiest news sources on the planet, and they make claims about something that's false. I think maybe independent fact checking is okay, like maybe it should be, and it's up to Facebook's discretion. But this is where censorship goes too far, right? Because we have YouTubers. So I'm an avid YouTube consumer, and YouTube has set up community guidelines, right? And they have decided what is acceptable for your content, and if it does not conform with that content, then you cannot make ad revenue on that video, right? What do you guys think about that? Because that is significant. A lot of YouTubers rely on ad revenue for content specifically, and I'll mention this because this is news. Joe Rogan, the biggest podcaster in the world, the godfather. I mean, he's not the godfather of podcasts, but he's like everybody's Walter Cronkite. He's like the modern Walter Cronkite, and he speaks to an entire generation of people. His platform is so massive, and he literally just signed a deal with Spotify, $100 million deal, because YouTube is censoring his videos. If you say a swear word or something like that in the first 10 minutes of a YouTube video, you don't get ad revenue.
You get demonetized.
Yeah, and he's like on his podcast smoking weed with Elon Musk and stuff, like illicit substances and like swear words and all this stuff. And so he's not making the money that he's worth, and so he went to Spotify. It's like, okay, YouTube, you want to play that game? We're just going to move. So maybe that's the way that it should happen, is the company can do whatever they want, but the free market will decide who can and cannot censor, right? What were you going to say, Brock? Did you have anything to say?
It was mainly what Nate was going to say about that, but like he pretty much like covered all my points that I was going to say.
I was going to add that I feel like some of these companies have such a big monopoly on their section of the internet, like Facebook and YouTube, that it'd be nice to say like, oh yeah, the free market will decide, but like it's kind of difficult for that to take place, just because of how big of like what other website are you going to go to watch videos on the internet?
Exactly.
Vimeo?
Exactly.
Like what is that?
Vimeo.
Like that's the only other one I can think of.
So what's your policy prescription for the government? Do you think they should be hands off or hands on?
Like I said, I go back and forth a lot because I can definitely see the argument that these companies are so big that it is almost considered public. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And in the public, we should have free speech. So it's like if you consider Facebook and YouTube a public space, then yeah, you should be allowed to say whatever you want other than hate speech. But I don't know if they are. That's where I kind of go back and forth. So I'm undecided. I cannot answer your question.
And you did mention hate speech, which is like a completely different can of worms, right?
Yeah.
Tanner, did you have anything to say?
I've thought a lot about this topic, but I haven't been able to like fully form my opinion.
Yeah.
Because I do think I am more conservative in the way that I think businesses should be able to do as they please, because if they do something that people don't like, then they will lose business and it just won't work out for them.
So the free market is your policy?
I haven't decided because
Okay.
I typically believe that way, but being that these companies like Google or like Twitter, for example, Twitter could censor anyone for any number of reasons, and then that person basically loses their ability to speak on that platform, which is a huge amount of communication today.
Yeah.
We spoke previously about, so many people go to social media to get news. Now that like old news outlets are starting to die off or at least lose credibility, that I think it's really dangerous to give these subsets of people, like these big companies, that much power to decide what they let people hear and what they don't. So I don't know if I think that the government should be able to intervene and say, well, okay, you can't censor for this reason or you can't censor for that, or like this and that, because it is a private business and it is their product.
Yeah.
But I think I don't know, that's where I'm undecided. Like, are they so big that it's become public and they have to just enable all speech? But then if they do that, do they lose profitability? I'm undecided.
Yeah, I think we can also talk about this maybe in a later podcast about big companies and the monopolies that are emerging, like Apple and Amazon and Facebook, just these massive companies that are just dominating, Google and YouTube and such. I think it's all very interesting, and I would like to eventually bring up the ethics of like the stuff that Amazon is doing with like their workers and the coronavirus and like equal pay or like good pay, like decent wages and such like that. But to close out the podcast, I do want to talk about one more topic. We were talking about this last night around, I guess it wasn't a campfire, but we were kind of camping a little bit. We were camping in John's backyard.
A backyard camp
Yeah, a backyard camp out. So we just set up a tent, had a lot of fun, whatever. But Brock was telling me about his philosophy regarding Tinder and Mutual. And for those of you who are listening who don't know what Mutual is, it's basically a Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I mean, it's not specifically affiliated with the church, but it's a platform that engages with Latter-day Saint young adults. And it specifically kind of weeds out the sinners like me and like other people, and it specifically keeps in sort of the cream of the crop. So when you go on to Mutual, you kind of know what you're looking for, because Latter-day Saints prefer to marry Latter-day Saints. That's kind of part of the culture. So Brock, what was your philosophy? Give us your scoop.
So I had this thought come to me that said that like Mutual is essentially like a clearance rack for people, where you just keep going through and through and through, and then you see something that might interest you, so you go try it on in like the fitting room, and then you're like,
That sounds so bad, by the way.
but like
It's factual.
but like, and then you realize you don't like it, so you put it back in the rack, and you just keep going through. It's just this endless cycle that makes you so sad. And then Tinder is essentially like you can putting your old clothes in a like a garbage bag and putting like a free sign over it and just kicking it to the curb, because you're essentially just giving yourself up for free without like any like you're just giving yourself up with like no like restraint or restriction on like how the other person should be treated or how you should treat yourself.
Well, and what's that word that describes people who create a Tinder page that does not accurately reflect who they are?
Catfish.
Kind of. I think catfishing is like a real term used by like when pedophiles catfish as somebody else. But what I'm talking
has
about
a more serious undertone, but this is like a lightened version. Like, you use a lot of edits on your pictures that kind of makes you look different than you really look. And
or in
you
my
exaggerate
case,
certain aspects
in
of
my
yourself.
case, when I had a Tinder, I only posted pictures of me before I got incredibly fat. So it's basically only pictures of me when I'm 18 and 19, and then like what I actually look like now is just a fat piece of shit. But what do you guys think? What do you guys think about Tinder and Mutual? What do you guys think about Brock's philosophy, where Mutual is just the clearance rack? What do you guys think about specifically dating apps?
Well,
and really quick, what is your personal experience, Nathan? Sorry.
I don't have a Tinder. I only have a mutual, so I cannot speak towards anything on Tinder. Mutual, I think, is fun. I've never really had great success with it, but it's kind of fun to send people messages sometime and talk to them, and with the hope of going on a date. But I never have. So.
But another phenomenon that Brock and I were talking about is like the chase. So you like the chase, but you don't actually like to sort of
follow through with it.
Yeah, follow through. So you're like a cheetah that likes to chase the animal, but you don't actually want to kill the animal. You just want to chase it. Or you're like a cat, I guess.
Or a dog with a squirrel.
Yeah, a dog with a squirrel. You don't know what you'd do if you actually got one, as the Joker quote goes. Like, but so Nathan, you don't like it?
Don't like mutual?
Yeah. Do you like it? Do you think it drains your humanity?
Honestly, I'm like never really on it. I just kind of get on it from time to time when I'm like bored. It's kind of like not a joke, but like almost like a meme around here.
Yeah.
So I haven't really taken it super seriously. So it's hard for me to really give a full opinion on it. But
John, I want to hear from you. What do you think about Tinder, about dating apps, specifically Mutual? Would you date a non-member woman? The answer is no.
No.
So do you use Tinder?
No.
Do you have a Tinder?
No, never have.
Interesting.
I have made a mutual at first as a meme, and it did not work. And then I was like, this app is broken. Let me make a real one. And that also did not work. So I think mutual is broken. I don't know. I'm like a pretty picky person, so I was literally just swiping down on everybody. And then like the few girls I was actually attracted to, like, I just never matched with anyone. So
Preaching my language,
I don't know.
John.
I only had it for like a few days, but nothing ever happened.
So you're a picky heartbreaker, and it doesn't interest you?
My official philosophy on like mutual is it is good for people who are not meeting people in real life. Because it is a good way to like meet people and go on dates and whatever.
So
like,
are you making it exclusively for introverts?
I mean, I think it's good for them. I think if you are meeting people in real life, that is ideal. It's just more natural and better, in my opinion. Let me just come after Adam for a second.
Yeah, let's do this. Adam, our good friend.
I love you, Adam. So Adam is engaged.
He's not going to listen to this, by the way.
That's
Nobody
probably
listens
true.
to this podcast.
Adam, if you hear this, I love you. Adam is engaged to a great girl named Gretchen. She was in our singles ward. She was our neighbor, yet he never spoke to her until they matched on Mutual. And when people ask them how they met, they say they met in singles ward because they don't want to say that they met on Mutual, which is hilarious.
I didn't know that.
Yep. So
Under the bus.
Rest in peace.
So it's just kind of like this thing, like you don't want to like meet your girlfriend on Mutual. Like you don't want to admit that. Nobody really wants to. Garrison hilariously like owns it, which I think is awesome. Like, we've been hanging out with this girl Avery, who's actually really cool, and whenever he introduces her to people, he's like, "Yeah, we met on Mutual," and it's just hilarious. Like, it doesn't matter, but people have like this view of like negativity, kind of.
Yeah, well, in some regard, like meeting somebody on Mutual isn't very romantic. It doesn't. Yeah. It's not like a love story. Yeah, there's no story. There's no love at first sight. There's no like Taylor Swift songs coming out of that one. It's like, and she swiped on Mutual, and then we were lovers. Like, yeah. There's no. So I feel like people literally only use it. So if we can establish that people aren't really looking for their wives, but they low key are looking for their wives, what are they doing? What are they on there for? what are people really on Tinder and Mutual for? I personally think, and we'll ask Tanner about this, but I personally think that it's just about the chase. People are bored, and most people, I feel like, are going to meet their spouse or their significant other in person or in a class or like at work or something like that. You're going to meet them organically. But I feel like people literally only have the apps on their phone because everyone thinks it's stupid, and so they don't swipe, or they do. But anyways, I feel like people just use it because it's like the chase. They just like the chase. They like the adrenaline of maybe thinking that another person likes them, but there's a certain level of anonymity, so you don't really know that. I don't know. What do you think, Tanner?
Well, I'm probably the most experienced Mutual user here.
So glad we saved you for last.
My opinion on Mutual is I prefer not to meet my spouse on Mutual. I think Mutual is just kind of fun. It's a good time waster, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
I technically dated someone on Mutual, but it was not serious at all, and I didn't plan on that going long term, and it didn't. I've kissed people from Mutual, but it was kind of meaningless.
Lame.
I mean, that's just how it is. Honestly, I think Mutual is fun if you are bored. If you need a date, it's good to go on Mutual. If your friends plan a group date and you don't know who to take, you can go on Mutual. That's typically what happens for me. But I think that it's kind of anticlimactic,
Huh.
That's kind of it.
Could you expand on that? What does anticlimactic mean?
Just exactly what we said before. If you meet someone on Mutual, it's always awkward at first. It's super awkward meeting them.
Yeah.
And it's
because
you might have talked about a few things.
The presupposition is that you've both admitted that you like each other.
Not that you like each other, but at least that you're attracted to each other, And it's
it's weird.
There's always the barrier of trying to figure out what the person you matched with wants, because everyone goes on there for different reasons. You're either there because you just want to make out with someone.
Yeah.
Again, this is Mutual. Tinder's a different story. But you're there if you want to make out. Some people honestly are looking for a relationship and are, they don't really care where they meet their spouse. They just want to get married.
Yeah.
And so, you might match with someone and you're strictly looking for the physical aspect of it.
Yeah.
Or maybe you just want to date. And the person you match with is looking to get potentially married.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's this awkward so
well, dude, it is
what's
awkward.
Gonna happen?
Because literally for the past you guys know that I have philosophies about evolution and where humans come from. We came from chimps and stuff like that, but dude, it is awkward because it hijacks our biology. This is something out of an H.G. Wells book. Where it's and people in the future will be able to be presented with a woman, and they will swipe left or right like kings, and they will decide if they like her or not. And then it totally surpasses all of the biological and completely natural processes that go into elopement. It's such it's honestly sick. And here we have another testament to what I think is the fact that this phone that is even recording this podcast right now is just a dopamine factory. It's literally just a factory that produces neurotransmitters whenever I want it, and it's on call, and I can plug in and get whatever I want. And if I plug off, I have withdrawals. Do you guys have anything to add to that? Yeah.
There's another aspect of dating apps, and I think this is kind of universal for all of them that we haven't really talked about yet. A lot of people go on them just to see who they'll match with. Because I've gotten to the point of Mutual, like I said, I don't take it seriously. This was kind of inspired by a friend of ours, McKay.
Yeah.
Where whenever I match with a girl, I'll just ask some absurd, dumb question to see what response they'll give me, and that's kind of it.
Huh.
I don't have any real intention of meeting them or going on a date.
So you're using them.
It's kind of, but
Utilizing.
Yes, John.
It's not good or bad for anyone. It's just dumb questions. But some people honestly will swipe up or swipe right on every single person they see just to see who's the most attractive person they'll match with. So in that sense, it's kind of toxic like Instagram can be, where you're just measuring yourself to who's the most attractive person I can match with.
Well,
and
that's true,
then you have
dude.
no intention of really seeing whether something will happen. It's just like measuring yourself.
Yeah, dude, that's a killer insight. I think everybody, like, at least with me, so quick caveat, I haven't been on Tinder for a long time, but like when I was, it was really about like what kind of caliber person am I? And it like reflected on my self-esteem, like, am I really the person, like who was the most attractive person that I could match with? And that's like a sick, like this is an H.G. Wells book. It's like a sick science fiction thing that some weird like writer thought of in the 1910s or whatever. It's just sick, and it seems to have hijacked our biology. I think that we have a very interesting symbiotic relationship with technology. We are fastly approaching the singularity.
Oh man.
But I do think that's a good place to kind of close out the podcast. If you made it thus far, as always, you are one of our favorite listeners. You're one of our biggest fans. So we appreciate you tuning in this far. We're going to go ahead and sign off with an adios muchachos. Everybody give us your adios muchachos.
Adios,
Muchachos.
That's really dumb. And perhaps next episode, by the way, we will end with, or we'll do something along the lines of financial transparency. Maybe we'll start off with that and read each other's bank accounts. So stay tuned, people.